9 shocking, recent archaeological discoveries that could rewrite world history. What do you think would happen if a single swing of a pickaxe was enough to overturn everything humanity had believed to be true for hundreds or even thousands of years? What if an unidentified set of human remains suddenly emerged and had the power to rewrite history? What if a tomb buried for centuries turned out to hold a story that had never been recorded in any historical text? Or what if a structure thought to have disappeared forever suddenly resurfaced beneath the ground? Would we really understand humanity's past? Or have we only uncovered the tip of a massive iceberg that's still waiting to be explored? Every year, archaeology brings discoveries that leave the world in awe. Some mysteries have only recently come to light, yet the more scientists investigate them, the more new questions emerge. And perhaps the most fascinating part is that many of these recent discoveries are forcing experts to reconsider conclusions that were once regarded as unquestionable historical facts. Hello, and welcome back to Ancient History. My friends, in today's video, we're going to explore 9 of the most shocking and mysterious archaeological discoveries announced in recent years. From Egypt's extraordinary tombs and a mummy so perfectly preserved that no scientist has dared to remove its wrappings, to a lavish 1,600-year-old mansion, a 3,000-year-old zoo in China, the 29,000-year-old remains of a child discovered in Thailand, and 2 one-of-a-kind ancient boats recently unearthed in Vietnam's ancient citadel of Louis Lao. Each discovery has revealed another missing piece of humanity's past while raising new mysteries that scientists have yet to fully explain. So, which discovery is the most astonishing? Which hidden secret could change the way we understand human history? Join us as we journey back through time, because what you'll see in the final moments of this video may completely transform the way you look at history. Now, without making you wait any longer, let's get started. The real tomb of the legendary D'Artagnan, discovered after more than 350 years. Have you ever wondered where someone known around the world through novels, movies, and legendary sword fights would be laid to rest after death? Most people would probably assume the answer is simple, that they'd be buried somewhere ordinary, just like everyone else. But when it comes to D'Artagnan, the legendary captain of the Musketeers who served under Kings Louis XIII and Louis XIV of France, and the real-life inspiration behind the famous novel The Three Musketeers, the answer remained a mystery for more than 350 years. What's even more fascinating is that this mystery didn't begin with a grand archaeological expedition. Instead, it all started with a surprisingly ordinary accident. Here's what happened. In February 2026, the floor of an ancient church in the Wolder district of Maastricht, the Netherlands, suddenly began to sink. At first, that might not sound like anything extraordinary. You might be thinking, if the floor sinks, you just repair it. But that seemingly minor incident soon captured the attention of archaeologists across Europe. While reinforcing the area beneath the church altar, construction workers discovered a hidden cavity beneath the floor. As they dug deeper, they uncovered an ancient tomb located directly beneath the church's main altar. Just imagine that for a moment, a grave resting beneath the altar itself, the holiest part of the church, a place that during the Middle Ages was typically reserved for only the most important individuals. That fact alone was enough to convince researchers that they were dealing with something highly unusual. The church's deacon, Jos Valky, immediately contacted archaeologist Wim Dijkman, a researcher who had spent nearly 30 years pursuing one question: where was D'Artagnan really buried? For Dijkman, it was one of those moments that no researcher ever truly expects, a discovery that had the potential to change an entire career. Once the official excavation began, archaeologists carefully removed layer after layer of soil until a human skeleton slowly emerged beneath the altar. What immediately stood out was the burial location itself. This was clearly not an ordinary grave. Its prestigious position strongly suggested that the individual had once held an exceptionally high status in society. But the real turning point came when archaeologists made a discovery that stopped everyone in their tracks. Embedded in the skeleton's chest was an ancient musket ball. The coincidence was almost unbelievable. Historical records describe D'Artagnan's death during the Siege of Maastricht in 1673, where he was fatally struck in the chest by a musket shot while fighting on the battlefield. As if that weren't enough, archaeologists also uncovered a 17th-century French coin inside the tomb. It may have seemed like a small detail, but it added another important piece to the puzzle, supporting the theory that the individual buried there may have been a high-ranking French officer who served under King Louis XIV. The skeleton's burial position also raised new questions. Rather than lying neatly in place, the body was slightly tilted, almost as though it had been placed inside a cramped space in haste. Taken together, these clues led researchers to focus on one remarkable historical figure, Charles de Batz de Castelmore, the real D'Artagnan. Born in the Gascony region of France, he faithfully served both King Louis XIII and King Louis XIV, earning a reputation for his unwavering loyalty and remarkable military achievements. It was this very man who later inspired Alexandre Dumas to create the immortal literary hero known simply as D'Artagnan. Today, the skeleton has been transferred to an archaeological institute in Deventer for further scientific analysis. At the same time, DNA samples have been sent to Munich, Germany, where researchers are comparing them with genetic material provided by descendants of the D'Artagnan family. In other words, the investigation has not yet reached a final conclusion. 3,000-year-old ancient zoo discovered in China. Did you know that 3,000 years ago, people had their own unique way of keeping wild animals? Not in zoos like we have today, but in a remarkably sophisticated system closely tied to royal power, religious rituals, and mysteries that archaeologists are only now beginning to uncover. And the most surprising part? The evidence has just been discovered in China. Specifically, during excavations carried out between 2023 and 2024 at the Yinshu Archaeological Site in Anyang, Henan Province, China, archaeologists uncovered a complex of 19 ancient sacrificial pits spread across an area of approximately 13,350 square feet. At first glance, those numbers may not seem particularly remarkable, but once researchers looked inside the pits, they were completely stunned. Why? Because instead of pottery, weapons, or other ordinary artifacts, they found the carefully buried remains of numerous wild animals arranged in an exceptionally organized manner. The discoveries included deer, wolves, tigers, leopards, foxes, gorals, wild boars, Asian water buffalo, and even birds such as swans, cranes, and geese. But the detail that truly sent chills through the archaeological community came next. Several of the animal skeletons were found wearing bronze bells around their necks, and in total, researchers uncovered 29 bronze bells. Just think about that for a moment. Wild animals wearing bells. Doesn't that suggest they may have been kept under control within an enclosed space? It was precisely this detail that led Niu Shishan, a researcher at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, to propose a fascinating theory. According to him, these animals may not have been captured from the wild immediately before being sacrificed. Instead, they were likely kept and managed in specially designated enclosures under the control of Shang dynasty kings or members of the royal aristocracy. In other words, as far back as 3,000 years ago, there may already have been a highly organized system for managing wild animals rather than simply hunting them for ritual sacrifices. And the discoveries didn't stop there. As archaeologists continued their analysis, they noticed that the different animal species had been arranged inside the pits according to consistent patterns. This strongly suggests that their placement was intentional and may have formed part of elaborate sacrificial ceremonies practiced during the Shang dynasty, which ruled from approximately 1600 to 1046 BC and is widely recognized as one of the earliest civilizations in Chinese history. If you've heard of Yinshu before, you'll know that it is no ordinary archaeological site. It was the final capital of the Shang dynasty, famous for its royal tombs, oracle bones, and ceremonial traditions of enormous cultural and religious significance. That makes the discovery of what appears to be a carefully controlled system for keeping wild animals even more extraordinary. Interestingly, this isn't the first time archaeologists have encountered evidence of what could be described as an ancient zoo. Earlier archaeological sites dating to the Warring States period also revealed sacrificial pits containing rare animals, including extinct ape species, leopards, Asian black bears, and lynxes. What makes Yinshu different, however, is how much clearer and more systematically organized the evidence appears to be. That raises an intriguing question. Just how much control over nature did people possess 3,000 years ago? Were these animals kept solely for sacrificial rituals, or did they also serve as symbols of royal authority and political power in ways we still don't fully understand? And perhaps most importantly, if a royal animal enclosure like this truly existed, How many more secrets of the Shang dynasty are still buried beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? 1,600-year-old estate, discovered beneath Kafr Qasim, reveals the wealth of the ancient Samaritans. What if I told you that beneath the ground of modern-day Israel, archaeologists have just uncovered a luxurious estate that existed more than 1,600 years ago? Even more fascinating, this discovery wasn't made during a planned excavation for its own sake. Instead, it came to light while heavy machinery was preparing the site for a brand new residential development. Would you believe it? If not, let's travel back to 2024. That year, archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority, IAA, carried out a routine excavation ahead of the construction of a new housing project near Kafr Qasim in northern Israel. During the excavation, they made an astonishing discovery: a massive archaeological complex hidden beneath the surface. The site turned out to be a 1,600-year-old agricultural estate located within the ancient archaeological area of Kafr Hada. At this point, you might be wondering, an ancient estate? What's so unusual about that? That's a fair question. Ancient estates aren't exactly rare, but this one is different because buried beneath the soil wasn't just a single building. It was an extensive residential and agricultural complex that had supported an entire community for centuries. Researchers determined that the site had once been home to the Samaritans, a community that lived in the region from the late Roman period through the Byzantine era, roughly between the 4th and 7th centuries AD. What immediately caught archaeologists' attention was the remarkable level of wealth reflected in the surviving architecture. Inside the estate, they uncovered an exquisitely crafted mosaic floor, decorated with intricate geometric patterns alongside images of fruits such as grapes, dates, and watermelon. One look at the floor is enough to tell you this was no ordinary farmhouse. It clearly belonged to someone of considerable wealth and social status. But the discoveries didn't end there. Near the entrance to one of the rooms, archaeologists uncovered part of an ancient Greek inscription bearing the phrase Mazal Tov, meaning good luck. It may sound like a simple greeting, but it provides valuable insight into the cultural and religious influences that shaped the Samaritan community during that period. And now we come to the discovery that truly amazed researchers. Within the estate, archaeologists also uncovered an impressively advanced agricultural production system, including a large olive oil press, a spacious storage facility, and a public ritual purification bath, known as a mikveh, located on the northern side of the complex. What's particularly remarkable is that the olive oil press was anything but ordinary. It featured 2 screw presses and a large crushing basin, a level of engineering more commonly associated with the Jerusalem region than with Samaria. This suggests that the estate wasn't merely a place to live. It also served as an important center of agricultural production. According to Dr. Alla Nagorsky and Dr. Daniel Leahy Griswold, the co-directors of the excavation for the Israel Antiquities Authority, everything from the elaborate mosaic floor to the sophisticated production facilities reflects an exceptionally prosperous period in the history of the Samaritan community that once lived here. In other words, this truly was a wealthy estate by the standards of the ancient world. Of course, the story doesn't end with luxury alone. As archaeologists studied the site's history more closely, they discovered clear evidence that the estate had undergone major changes over time. New walls had been built directly over the original mosaic floors. Decorative columns had been dismantled and reused as construction materials elsewhere in the complex. In other words, what had once been an elegant residence was gradually transformed into a space dedicated primarily to agricultural production. Researchers believe this transformation may be connected to historical events, particularly the Samaritan revolts against the Byzantine Empire during the 5th and 6th centuries AD. Even so, one detail makes this site especially remarkable. Unlike many settlements of the period, the estate was not completely destroyed. Instead, it continued to be occupied and used for a considerable length of time. The strangely beautiful Egyptian mummy that no archaeologist dares to unwrap. As you know, the world of archaeology is filled with mysteries that spark our curiosity and ignite our imagination. Some mysteries can be solved almost immediately. Others become even more mysterious the longer we study them. So much so that researchers eventually become afraid to disturb them. The mummy known as Bashiri is one of those mysteries. It isn't a legend or the invention of a Hollywood movie. It is a real archaeological artifact, preserved in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and for more than 100 years, scientists have deliberately left its linen wrappings untouched. The story begins in 1919, in the Valley of the Kings near Luxor, Egypt, a place long regarded as the most sacred burial ground of Egypt's ancient royal tombs. During excavations there, the renowned archaeologist Howard Carter, who would later astonish the world with the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb, came across an extraordinary mummy inside a tomb dating to the Ptolemaic period. From the very first moment, what caught everyone's attention wasn't the coffin. It was the mummy itself. The linen wrappings surrounding the body had been arranged with such astonishing precision that they looked less like ordinary burial cloths and more like an intricate work of art. The overlapping bands of linen formed elaborate geometric patterns across the face, creating an appearance reminiscent of the architecture of a pyramid carefully recreated on the human body. It was at that moment that archaeologists made an extraordinary decision. No one would be allowed to unwrap this mummy. The reason sounds simple, but for archaeologists, it was absolutely critical. The wrappings are incredibly fragile. Even the slightest physical disturbance could permanently destroy this one-of-a-kind masterpiece. And so Bashiri became known as the untouchable mummy. But don't misunderstand. That doesn't mean scientists have been unable to study it. Over the following decades, researchers turned to advanced non-invasive technologies, including CT scans and X-rays, allowing them to examine the mummy without removing a single strip of linen. What they discovered was remarkable. Inside the wrappings lies the body of a man standing approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall. He was mummified during the Ptolemaic period, roughly between the 2nd and early 3rd centuries BC, an era when the art of Egyptian mummification had reached an extraordinary level of sophistication. Yet what truly sets this mummy apart isn't what's hidden beneath the wrappings. It's what appears on the outside. Across the mummy's chest is an elaborate beaded collar composed of multiple rows of beads and decorated with the image of a falcon's head, a powerful symbol of authority, prestige, and wealth in ancient Egyptian society. It wasn't merely decorative, it served as a statement of the deceased's high social standing during life. The decorations continue across the body, revealing an even deeper layer of symbolism. The deceased is depicted lying upon a funerary bed while being protected by the goddesses Isis and Nephthys, divine guardians believed to watch over souls on their journey into the afterlife. Nearby appear the 4 sons of Horus, Dua Mutef, Kebesenuef, Hapi, and Imsiti, the deities responsible for protecting the internal organs removed during the ancient Egyptian mummification process. And the symbolism doesn't end there. Near the feet appears the figure of Anubis, the god most closely associated with death, embalming, and funeral rites. Taken together, these images represent far more than artistic decoration. They form an extraordinarily complex system of religious symbolism, strongly suggesting that the individual buried inside belonged to the highest levels of ancient Egyptian society. Yet despite all these clues, the greatest mystery remains unsolved. No one knows exactly who this mummy is. Only a faint inscription survived inside the tomb. It may read Bashiri or perhaps Nino, but even today experts cannot determine its true meaning with certainty. As a result, for more than a century, the mummy has remained exactly as it was discovered. No one has dared to remove the wrappings. No one has been willing to sacrifice its remarkable state of preservation. And perhaps that's precisely what makes Bashiri so extraordinary. It is more than just a mummy. It is a living mystery, a reminder that some questions from history become even more profound the closer we come to answering them, sometimes forcing us to stop and wonder whether preserving the mystery is just as important as solving it. 2 ancient boats with a one-of-a-kind design could rewrite the history of ancient trade in Vietnam. There's something fascinating about archaeology that many people don't realize. Some of history's greatest discoveries aren't made during excavations planned years in advance. Instead, they often begin with the most ordinary events imaginable. Sometimes a farmer accidentally strikes an ancient artifact while digging a field. Sometimes a construction project unexpectedly exposes an ancient tomb. And this time was no different. A simple plan to renovate a fish pond in Vietnam ended up awakening a secret that had lain hidden beneath the earth for thousands of years. The discovery took place in December 2024 in Cong Ha neighborhood, Ha Man Ward, Thuan Thanh Town, Bac Ninh Province, Vietnam. While an excavator was dredging the bottom of a fish pond, Nguyen Van Chien, an ordinary local farmer, suddenly noticed an enormous wooden object emerging from the mud. At first, everyone assumed it was nothing more than an ancient tree trunk, but as more of it came into view, its shape looked strikingly like the bow of a boat. Instead of continuing to dig, Mr. Chien immediately ordered all excavation work to stop. Having long been interested in historical artifacts, he had a feeling this was no ordinary piece of wood. That seemingly small decision ultimately saved what is now considered one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries ever made in Vietnam. As soon as the discovery was reported, the Bac Ninh Department of Culture, Sports and Tourism, working together with the Institute of Archaeology, rushed to the site. As archaeologists carefully removed layer after layer of mud, they could hardly believe what they were seeing. At the bottom of the pond lay not one, but two enormous wooden boats, resting side by side. What astonished researchers even more was that their construction was unlike any ancient boats previously discovered in Vietnam. Each vessel measures approximately 52.5 feet long and nearly 6.5 feet wide. The hull of each boat is divided into 6 separate compartments, but the most extraordinary feature, and one never before documented, is found at the front, where the two boats are connected by a sturdy wooden beam. Even experts who have spent decades studying ancient watercraft admitted they had never encountered a design like this before. Naturally, one question immediately comes to mind. Why would ancient builders connect two boats together? Was it designed to transport heavy cargo, to cross rivers more safely, or could it represent an entirely different type of vessel that historians have yet to identify? Those are exactly the questions archaeologists are now trying to answer. According to Dr. Pham Van Trio, the director of the excavation, every step of the recovery process had to be carried out with extraordinary care. After spending hundreds, or perhaps even thousands of years buried in waterlogged mud, the wood had deteriorated to such an extent that direct sunlight or even a single hard impact could cause the hulls to crack apart. For that reason, workers were prohibited from using metal tools. Instead, they carefully scraped away the mud using small wooden implements, exposing the boats little by little. As they cleaned out each compartment, the scientists made another fascinating discovery. They found numerous tiny preserved plant seeds scattered inside the boats. Those seeds may seem insignificant, but according to researchers, they could provide some of the most valuable evidence of all. By identifying them, scientists may be able to determine what kinds of goods were once stored in each compartment, where those goods originated, and where they were transported. If that evidence can be fully decoded, it could dramatically improve our understanding of ancient trade networks centered around Louis Lo thousands of years ago. And that brings us to perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle. Louis Lo was once the capital of Jiaoji, serving for centuries during the early Common Era as the largest political, commercial, and religious center in what is now northern Vietnam. Previous excavations conducted in 1999, 2014, and 2024 uncovered bronze drum casting molds, metallurgical workshops, and more than 2,300 mold fragments, providing compelling evidence that Louis Lo was one of the most important bronze production centers of ancient Vietnam. With that history in mind, many experts believe these newly discovered boats were far more than simple means of transportation. The 29,000-year-old skeleton of a child discovered in Thailand. If you had the chance to travel back nearly 30,000 years, what do you think Southeast Asia would have looked like? Would the region we know today have already been divided by seas and islands? Or was it once a vast stretch of connected land where the earliest humans wandered, hunted, and struggled to survive? It sounds like the plot of a science fiction story, doesn't it? But recently, the discovery of a tiny human skeleton deep inside a cave in Thailand, a small country in Southeast Asia, has made those questions more relevant than ever. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that the central figure in this story wasn't a king, a warrior, or the leader of an ancient tribe. It was simply a child about 6 to 8 years old, a young life that ended during a time when humans still lived in the wild. Yet after nearly 30,000 years, this child has become the key to unlocking an entirely new chapter in the history of Southeast Asia. This extraordinary discovery was announced by Thailand's Fine Arts Department following excavations at Din Cave, a cave located on a mountainside about 410 feet above sea level. Din Cave was already well known to archaeologists. As early as 1996, it gained international attention after researchers discovered numerous prehistoric rock paintings depicting people, animals, and mysterious red symbols covering many of the cave walls. Those paintings had long convinced scientists that humans had lived here thousands of years ago. What they never imagined was that beneath the cave floor lay an even older secret. During the latest excavation, archaeologists expanded the area where pottery fragments, stone tools, and animal bones had previously been uncovered. As they dug to a depth of approximately 6.5 feet below the cave floor, they were astonished to discover human bones that remained almost exactly where they had originally been buried. As each layer of soil was carefully removed, the entire skeleton gradually emerged. The child was affectionately given the nickname Pangpond, after a beloved Thai cartoon character. But what truly amazed researchers wasn't just the skeleton's incredible age. It was the way the child had been buried. The body was laid on its back, with the head facing southwest. Carefully arranged stones surrounded the remains, almost like a protective ring. The feet had been placed closely together, leading archaeologists to believe the body may have been wrapped or bound with organic materials that decomposed long ago. Just think about that for a moment. Nearly 30,000 years ago, people took such care when burying one of their own. What does that tell us? Doesn't it suggest that these early humans did more than simply survive? Perhaps they had already developed funeral rituals, spiritual beliefs, and deep emotional bonds with those they loved. Initial analysis indicates that Pangpon died between the ages of 6 and 8. The bones display a reddish-brown coloration and still preserve traces of ash, suggesting that both the burial environment and the funeral activities left evidence that survived for tens of thousands of years. To determine the age of the burial, scientists sent charcoal and shell samples collected from the soil layers above the skeleton to the Beta Analytic Laboratory in the United States for radiocarbon dating. The results showed that those upper layers dated between 11,000 and 29,000 years ago. Because the skeleton was buried beneath every one of those layers, researchers concluded that Pangpon must be more than 29,000 years old, dating to the late Pleistocene. That makes it the oldest human skeleton ever discovered in Thailand, significantly older than any previous human remains found in the country. According to Panambutra Chandrashoti, Director General of Thailand's Fine Arts Department, this is a groundbreaking discovery because it has the potential to change our understanding of the earliest human presence in Southeast Asia. The importance of this discovery becomes even clearer when we consider the world of the late Pleistocene. At that time, sea levels were far lower than they are today. A massive landmass known as Sundaland connected much of what is now Southeast Asia into a single continuous landscape. Because of this, Pangpon could represent a crucial link in helping scientists trace the migration, adaptation, and development of the first human communities to spread across this region. Rare 250-year-old cold bath discovered in England amazes archaeologists. Can you believe it? The ice bath trend that so many athletes, celebrities, and health experts constantly share on social media today isn't actually anything new. In fact, hundreds, even thousands of years ago, people had already discovered the health benefits of cold water. But what truly surprised archaeologists is that they recently uncovered evidence showing that people in England built a public cold bath about 250 years ago. Even more remarkably, it may be the only surviving structure of its kind ever discovered. The discovery was announced following an archaeological excavation beneath the bath assembly rooms in the city of Bath, Somerset, England. As part of a restoration and research project, archaeologists carefully removed layers of concrete, brick, stone, and wartime debris. Then, beneath what appeared to be an ordinary floor, they uncovered an astonishingly well-preserved structure that revealed a very different story about life in 18th century England. When people hear the name Bath, they usually think of its famous hot springs. And for good reason. Founded around the 1st century AD, Bath quickly became one of Britain's most important centers for culture, religion, and leisure. During the Roman Empire, the city became world famous for its magnificent hot baths, which remain among Europe's most iconic archaeological landmarks to this day. But here's something many people don't know. More than 2 centuries ago, the people of Bath were just as enthusiastic about cold water as they were about hot mineral springs. It may sound surprising, but during the 18th and 19th centuries, many British physicians believed that regular cold water bathing could improve both physical and mental health. At the time, the practice was recommended to help treat a variety of illnesses, including gout, a condition that was especially common among the aristocracy. As a result, cold baths gradually began appearing alongside traditional hot spring facilities in popular spa towns like Bath. What makes this newly discovered structure particularly fascinating is its location. It wasn't part of an ordinary public bathhouse. Instead, it was built directly beneath the Bath Assembly Rooms, a grand building completed in 1771. In its bay, this was where Britain's upper class gathered to dance, attend concerts, socialize, play cards and billiards, drink coffee, and mingle with society's most influential figures. You could think of it as one of England's premier entertainment and social centers of the 18th century. According to guidebooks about the city of Bath published in 1778, the complex once featured a spacious cold bath complete with comfortable changing rooms. That suggests cold water immersion wasn't viewed solely as a medical treatment. It had also become part of the refined lifestyle enjoyed by the wealthy. Over time, however, traces of the structure gradually disappeared. 20 tombs buried for more than 2,600 years, discovered in Egypt. On December 19th, an Egyptian archaeological mission announced a discovery that immediately captured the attention of researchers around the world. While excavating the Tel El Deir archaeological site in Damietta Governorate, northern Egypt, the team uncovered 20 ancient tombs dating to Egypt's late period, which lasted from approximately 664 to 332 BC. At first glance, the site appeared to be nothing more than an ancient cemetery long buried beneath the sands of time. But as archaeologists dug deeper, what emerged convinced many experts that this discovery could reshape our understanding of the history of the entire Damietta region. According to Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, the newly discovered cemetery contains several different types of burials. Some tombs were carefully constructed from mud bricks and built to last. Others, however, contained individuals who had been buried much more simply, with little or no architectural structure surrounding them. This contrast suggests that ancient Egyptian society may have included multiple social classes whose burial customs differed significantly from one another. What especially caught archaeologists' attention is that several of the mud brick tombs appear to date to the 26th dynasty, also known as the Sate dynasty, whose pharaohs ruled Egypt from approximately 664 to 525 BC. Of course, this remains a hypothesis for now, but if it is confirmed, these tombs could become an invaluable source of information about a period of Egyptian history that still contains many unanswered questions. The real surprise, however, began when archaeologists started opening the tombs one by one. Resting directly above the skeletal remains, they discovered numerous thin sheets of gold that had once been placed over the bodies of the deceased. These golden pieces were valuable not only because of the precious metal itself, but also because they had been carefully crafted into images of sacred Egyptian deities. Some depicted Isis, the goddess associated with motherhood and rebirth. Others portrayed Bastet, the famous cat-headed goddess of protection. Most striking of all were images of Horus in the form of a falcon with outstretched wings, a powerful symbol of royal authority and divine protection for the deceased on their journey into the afterlife. And the discoveries didn't stop there. The excavation team also recovered numerous amulets of various shapes and sizes. In ancient Egyptian belief, these objects were far more than decorative jewelry. They were believed to protect the soul from evil spirits and help the dead overcome the challenges they would face in eternity. Do you think that's everything? Not even close. Within the burial complex, archaeologists also discovered an ancient headrest, an artifact commonly associated with the burial rituals of people with high social status. At the same time, they uncovered several canopic jars representing the four sons of Horus. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, after the internal organs were removed during the mummification process, they were placed inside these specially designed jars so the gods could protect them, allowing the deceased to be reborn in the afterlife. Researchers also recovered a collection of small statues depicting well-known deities such as Isis, Nephthys, and Jehudi, Thoth. Together, these discoveries show that the funerary rituals practiced at Tel El Deir were carried out with remarkable care and deep spiritual significance. What's particularly noteworthy is that this isn't the first time Tel El Deir has surprised archaeologists. Previous excavations at the site uncovered tombs dating to several different historical periods. The overlapping layers of cemeteries built over many centuries reveal that Tel El Dair was continuously inhabited by different communities, each with its own distinctive burial traditions. According to researchers, this diversity is helping them reconstruct how ancient Egyptian religious beliefs, daily life, and social structures evolved over hundreds of years. Mustafa Waziri emphasized that this is far more than an ordinary archaeological discovery. It is a scientific breakthrough that could rewrite the history of the Damietta region. Because every tomb, every fragment of gold, every protective amulet, and every carved statue serves as a message from the past, bringing us one step closer to understanding a civilization that once stood among the greatest the ancient world had ever seen. The joint tomb of two men and the 8 words, carved on its wall that revealed a heartbreaking story. If one day you came across a tomb containing the remains of 2 people buried together, what would be the very first thing that came to your mind? Most people would probably assume it was the tomb of a husband and wife. After all, for thousands of years, joint burials in Eastern cultures have almost always been associated with married couples. But an ancient tomb discovered in China completely shattered that assumption. Inside were not a husband and wife, nor a father and son, nor even blood relatives. Instead, the tomb held the remains of 2 men. Even more astonishing, an inscription that survived on the tomb wall revealed a story so moving that even seasoned archaeologists were left speechless. The story began in March 2014, when construction workers were building a new subway line in Chengdu, Sichuan Province, China. As heavy machinery dug deep into the ground, workers unexpectedly uncovered a series of brick and stone structures that looked remarkably like ancient tombs. Realizing they might have stumbled upon an important archaeological site, construction immediately came to a halt, and the authorities were notified. Archaeologists soon arrived and launched an emergency excavation. As they continued digging, they were astonished to discover that what lay beneath the surface wasn't just a handful of isolated graves. Instead, they uncovered an enormous cemetery complex covering approximately 24,750 square feet. Dozens of tombs built from large bricks and stone emerged from beneath the earth. Many of the stone slabs were beautifully carved with dragons and phoenixes using remarkably sophisticated craftsmanship. Even a quick glance made it obvious that the people buried here had not been ordinary citizens. Unfortunately, over the centuries, most of the tombs had already been looted. Grave robbers had stolen nearly all of the valuable burial treasures. Yet despite the missing artifacts, the surviving stone inscriptions revealed a truth that completely surprised researchers. The entire cemetery had served as the burial ground for Ming Dynasty eunuchs, the palace officials who served within the imperial court. Among the many tombs, archaeologists quickly focused their attention on tomb number 12 and tomb number 13 in Area B of the excavation. Together, they formed an extremely rare double-chambered joint burial. The team also discovered one tomb brick, whose color differed noticeably from all the others, suggesting that this particular tomb had been constructed with extraordinary care. Although part of the structure had collapsed and grave robbers had taken many of the burial goods, the overall layout remained remarkably well preserved. During the excavation, archaeologists recovered several valuable artifacts, including ceramic figurines whose vibrant colors had survived for more than 500 years. The exceptional craftsmanship clearly indicated that the tomb's occupants had once held positions of considerable importance. But one question puzzled everyone. Why would a cemetery reserved for eunuchs contain a joint burial for 2 men? Such a practice was almost unheard of in traditional Chinese burial customs. The answer was carved into the stone inscription itself. After carefully deciphering the text, experts determined that the 2 men buried there were named Wei Yu and Ruan Ying, both eunuchs who served during the Ming Dynasty. Historical records reveal that during the reign of the Chenghua Emperor, Wei Yu entered the residence of the Prince of Shu at the age of 8, while Ruan Ying arrived at just 6 years old. The 2 boys came from the same hometown and were nearly the same age, quickly becoming inseparable friends. Within the harsh and highly competitive environment of the imperial court, they relied on one another for support, enduring countless hardships side by side. As the years passed, their intelligence and loyalty earned them the trust of the Prince of Shu. Eventually, both rose to positions of significant authority and influence. Yet behind their wealth and prestige lay a sorrow neither man could ever escape. As eunuchs, they could never marry or have children. In the society of their time, being a eunuch was also considered a disgrace to one's family lineage. After death, they were often denied burial alongside their ancestors. The older they became, the more they had to confront the painful reality of growing old alone. After years of reflection, the two friends made an extraordinary promise. They vowed that they would live as friends and be buried together after death. In the 11th year of the Zhengde Emperor's reign, Ruan Ying died at the age of 55. Wei Yu personally arranged every detail of his friend's funeral and deliberately reserved the burial space beside him for himself. 11 years later, when Wei Yu passed away, he was buried exactly where he had planned, resting beside the friend who had stood by his side throughout his entire life. Perhaps the most moving discovery of all was found on the wall inside the burial chamber. 8 large Chinese characters remained clearly carved into the stone. Sharing one home, sharing one grave, brothers forever by each other's side. Those 8 simple words tell the story of a friendship that endured for more than half a century. My friends, through these 9 discoveries, one thing becomes very clear. History has never been a finished book. Every unearthed tomb, every skeleton discovered, and every artifact brought up from beneath the earth has the power to change what we once believed to be true. And who knows, right now, somewhere in the world, there may still be thousands-year-old secrets waiting to be uncovered. So if you enjoy mysterious archaeological and historical stories like this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the Ancient History channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next exciting journeys of discovery. And for now, goodbye, and see you next time.